Hey everybody, welcome to the first video in the SID Classroom series. Hopefully these videos can help you out in your sports information office. Cover a whole bunch of stuff, whether it's Photoshop or InDesign, Stack Crew, High Tech, anything like that. We'll pop up an email at the end of the video that you can send in your requests if you'd like to see something covered. But for our first video today, we're going to talk about something that's a big time saver for me, and that's batching. We're in Photoshop, talking about doing batching in Photoshop, and as an example, I'm going to batch some headshots today. And what do I mean by batch? Well, a batch in Photoshop means you take an action. Say for example, you want to turn all of your headshots black and white. You do it to 1, Photoshop will remember that, and then you can then go and apply that same effect in the same order to all of the headshots in that particular series or action photos, whatever they are. And obviously this can be a huge time saver when you're dealing with, say, 120 football headshots, an entire folder of action photos that you want to use for a media guide, etc. So I have Photoshop open. I'm using CS3. Same thing if you're doing CS2 or if you have CS4. It all works the same. Everything's, for this batching in particular, it's pretty much all in the same place. I have a folder, our women's cross-country team and their coaches from this year. And so we'll be using these photos as an example. You can see these headshots pretty much straight off the camera. The one thing I did do is I did rename them. The file name is the name of that particular person. That's going to help me later when I upload these photos to my website. I'm using ICS, and so ICS will automatically pick out the name of the file name, and it'll always be searchable by that, so I don't have to then go through and tag the photos again. And also, obviously, it makes it easier to ID these people down the line. So I have a folder of headshots, and as you can see, they're sideways. That's how they came off of my camera. Not all cameras will do that, but a couple different ways to turn them right side up. That's the first thing we have to do. In Windows, real easy shortcut. You can select all the photos. You can right-click, and you can actually rotate them clockwise or counterclockwise. In this case, we want to go counterclockwise. And it'll take a second to do that. You can also do this in Photoshop itself. If you're on a Mac, you can do that as part of the batch process, and I'll explain that in a second. So now we have right side up headshots, and we're going to go into Photoshop. And to batch, the first thing we need to do is we need to learn the Actions palette. There's two different ways you can get into the Actions. You can go to Windows, Actions, or also over here on the right hand sidebar, the second one down, the little play button is Actions. So we'll click on that and it'll pop out, and there's a whole bunch of default actions here. Do various things, but we're going to make a new action, and so you would make a new action the same way if you're familiar with the layers palette, clicking on create new action down at the bottom of the palette. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to call this headshots. You can assign it a hotkey if you want, color code. We're not going to bother with that. And hit record, and when it's recording, it's going to record everything that we do. So we're going to open the file, we're going to do some effects on it if we want to, resize it, and it'll remember all that. So what I want to do is, I have this set of headshots, and I want to use these in a media guide, so I need some high resolution black and white TIFFs. So I'm going to do that, but then I also want to put them on the web. So I'm going to need some low resolution color JPEGs. And again, these headshots are the originals. They're very large files, so we want to size them down for the web. So the first thing I'm going to do, and you can organize these any way that you like, but what I like to do is I make 2 folders inside the original folder. So the first one is, I'm going to call it high res black and white. And then the other one, I'm going to make a low-res web. And so now we have folders for these new files to go to. And remember, Photoshop's still in the background. It's still recording what we're doing. So I'm going to open just one headshot. So we'll take the first one, drag that over here, and first thing I want to do is, again, if you didn't rotate it before, now would be the time to do it. So you could do that in image, rotate canvas, and then 90 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise. So if you're on a Mac, you would want to do it here. Any other things that you might want to do that's not a black and white conversion or size conversion, like if you knew that you had to sharpen every picture, or if you had a consistent level that you wanted to apply, now would be the time to do that, but chances are you don't need to do that. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is, again, I want a high resolution black and white TIFF. So I'm going to go to Image, Mode, Grayscale, and now I have my black and white part. And then I'm going to save this as, in the high resolution black and white folder, a black and white TIFF, or black and white JPEG if that's what you're using. Either way, hit save, hit OK there, and great. Okay, so now one step's done. I have a high resolution black and white TIFF, but I want to color low res. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to step backwards, and you can do Edit, Step Backwards. And now I'm basically back to my original, but I've already saved the black and white TIFF, so that's in there. So that part's done. Now I want a low-res color headshot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Image, Image Size, and in here, you can set this to whatever. If your web system wants it a certain way, you can set it that way. Mine, it seems to work best if I go 800 by 1200. So I'm going to do that. My resolution's already at 72. If you're doing these for the web, you're going to want the resolution to be at 72. If it came off the camera at, say, 180 or 240 or even 300, you're going to want to downsample that for the web. So that's good. Hit OK. Smaller now, as you can see. And now we're going to do the same thing we just did with the black and white. We're going to do File, Save As. But this time we're going to select the other folder, the low-res web folder, and this is still in TIFF, so I'm going to want to make sure I get this as a JPEG for the web. Save that, hit OK, and then all I want to do is just close that. So we've run through all of our steps on the one, and as you can see over on the Actions palette, it's saved every single action that we've done. So we don't want to do anything else to these, so we're going to hit Stop. And now we're actually going to get to the batching part. So with nothing open, we're going to go to File, Automate, Batch. And what this is going to do is this is going to run that action on the entire folder of images, whatever we select. So in this case, you're going to want to find the action that we want to do. And in this case, it's already up. It's the headshots action, but of course you could pick any of the actions. Pick our source, and I'm going to want to choose my XC heads folder. That's where I have mine saved. You're going to want to make sure that you check the override action opens command, because that'll make sure that the open action that we had saved will work. We don't want to include subfolders, because then that would get stuck in a loop with the files that we end up saving. For destination, just do save and close, and make sure the override action save as commands box is unchecked. So with that, we just hit OK, and you'll see it just really quick pops each photo up and out. And in fact, if we go over to the folder while it's doing that, we can start seeing that the high-res black and white and low-res web folders are being populated by Photoshop. It's only done, almost done. 2 more to go, and that's it. So Photoshop just went and basically cut our work. We have 13 photos in this folder. You could have sat there and done it 13 times, but instead we did it once, and Photoshop did it the other 12 times. We have an entire folder of low-res web-ready headshots and an entire folder of high-res black and whites, along with our original folder of high-res color that's good for well, for anything really. So that's it. That's batching in a nutshell. And again, if you want to see anything else, email me, sidclassroom@gmail.com, and we'll do whatever you guys want to see. Thanks.